10 largest Shark Tank offers rejected. Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Screenie. Hundreds of business-savvy entrepreneurs made an appearance on Shark Tank in hope Mark Cuban and the gang will give them the push they desperately need. Some were laughed off, others got what they were looking for, and very few rejected the amazing offers that could have turned their life around. That didn't stop some of them from making millions after their brief stint on Shark Tank when they proved to the world how amazing their ideas actually are. 5 minutes in the spotlight transformed them into instant success stories. But the Sharks usually weren't too pleased after getting no for an answer. Getting a taste of their own medicine left them very disappointed, and they probably regretted not throwing more money at the companies that did extremely well after turning them down. Let's take a look at the 10 largest Shark Tank offers rejected. If you want to see more epic moments from your favorite movies and TV shows, don't forget to subscribe to our channel.
At Proof, we create the most amazing, one-of-a-kind, handcrafted eyewear from the most sustainable woods available.
Number 10. Proof Eyewear. $150,000. When three Idaho brothers pitched their handcraft sunglasses made of wood and other biodegradable materials, some of the Sharks felt their vision was worth investing in. Kevin O'Leary and Robert Herjavec were ready to cash out $150,000 for a 25% equity stake at Proof Eyewear. But the Dane bros weren't budging. They were ready to part ways for 20% for $200,000, but the Sharks weren't ready to risk that much. The Dane brothers were a little bit worried after walking away from a six-figure sum, but it was the right choice at the end of the day. Proof Eyewear apparently didn't need that $150,000 to turn profit because their sales skyrocketed after the three founders got their 5 minutes of Shark Tank fame. Their company has been debt-free ever since, and it reports annual sales of $1.6 million. Hundreds of stores worldwide are selling their products, but the brothers decided that's not enough. They opened their flagship store in Boise back in 2015 so people could admire their artwork, even if they're not ready to cash out around $100 for a pair of shades.
Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh, it's another green cleaning company. But EcoNuts are totally different.
Number 9. EcoNuts. $175,000. Mona Weiss and Scott Shields took the stage of Shark Tank hoping that they would get $170,000 for a 15% equity stake in their business EcoNuts. But the investors weren't having it. Kevin O'Leary said that he would have to own the whole business if he gave them that kind of money, but Robert Herjavec believed it was more valuable. He offered them that same sum in exchange for 50% of the business, but Mona's rude comments enraged him, and he was also out. The founders of the natural detergent company got to hold on to their equity after the show, and orders started coming in. Despite receiving a lot of criticism for both their marketing strategy and the product they were trying to sell, Weiss and Shields are doing pretty good these days. EcoNuts was able to hit the $1 million mark after the general public found out about their eco-friendly substitute for laundry soap thanks to Shark Tank.
With our innovative technology, we match a person's face to their belonging. You simply hand over your coat and then type your name into the system.
Number 8. Coat checks. $200,000. When Derek Pack introduced a ticket-free coat check system on Shark Tank, some of the investors found it too complicated and decided to pass. Mark Cuban wasn't one of them, and he saw a lot of potential in the young founder's idea. He offered him $200,000 for a 1/3 equity stake, and Pack was very close to saying yes, but he decided to walk away after seeking out advice from one of his professors to make sure that he was making the right choice. Turns out his heart was in the right place, since Coat Checks is killing it right now. His company was at the early stages of its development during his Shark Tank stint, but it became the leader of the coat checking industry in the years to come. Pack has landed contracts for huge events, including New York Fashion Week, Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week, and the Super Bowl. Back in 2015, his company provided coat checking at 50 locations, including Madison Square Garden and the Lincoln Center. He's doing pretty well for a college kid who turned down Mark Cuban.
Zuba is an African fashion marketplace. So right now we have over 80 vendors in the marketplace from all over the world.
Number 7. Zuba, $460,000. When Kelechi Anyadaigwu appeared on Shark Tank, she asked for $460,000 in return for a 10% stake in her company. Investors were impressed by her online market space specializing in African fashion, but they weren't ready to cash out as much money as she wanted. The founder was already earning $50,000 a month in revenue, but she needed the Sharks to help her with scaling up. It was her dream to build a larger platform so she could start working with even more designers and include new types of products. Kevin O'Leary took the bait and offered her a $460,000 loan at a 12% interest rate in exchange for 10% of Zuba. It seemed like a pretty reasonable proposal, but Anyadaigwu walked away because she wanted to maintain control of her company.
Jeff Cohen first walked away from $1 million offer from Kevin O'Leary for his foldable guitar company, Voyager Air.
Number 6. Voyager Air Guitar, $500,000. When the first season of Shark Tank made it on the air, viewers couldn't even imagine someone who would be foolish enough to say no to $500,000. They learned nothing is impossible when Jeff Cohen stood in front of the Sharks and did just that. Mr. Wonderful offered him $500,000 for a 51% stake in his company, Voyager Air Guitar. But the owner felt that his amazing idea was worth much more. Cohen came out with the patent for the world's first foldable guitar that makes transportation easier than ever. He walked away empty-handed, but got a lot of publicity thanks to his amazing pitch. The business kept expanding, and Voyager Air Guitar launched in over 200 stores around the US. Shark Tank producers asked Cohen to make a comeback during season 3, and he accepted the invite. He felt O'Leary's offer didn't come with too many strings attached this time around, and they finally sealed the deal. Despite their hefty price tag, Voyager Air Guitar are doing amazing these days, and Cohen claims they earn millions of dollars every year.
Kodiak Cakes is a flapjack and waffle mix. It's unique because it's made with 100% whole grains.
Number 5. Kodiak Cakes, $500,000. When Joel Clark took over his family business in 1997, Kodiak Cakes, based on his mother's pancake recipe, earned about $2.5 million in revenue before his TV debut. But he desperately needed a publicity bump. And that's exactly what he got thanks to Shark Tank. But none of the investors were ready to cash out $500,000 for 10% of his business. Clark and his partner Cameron Smith rejected lower offers, but they got the push they needed. Their protein-rich baking mix is selling like crazy at Target, and it can also be purchased in thousands of stores around the country, including Costco, Kroger, and Amazon.
America's first premium wine by the glass.
Number 4. Copa de Vino, $600,000. Viewers of Shark Tank aren't always on the same page with investors, but there's one person that united them in their hatred. His name is James Martin, and despite his company's great potential, he's still considered as one of the most despised people to ever enter the tank. The self-absorbed entrepreneur made a pitch for on-the-go wine called Copa de Vino, asking for $600,000 for 30% of the company. Some of the Sharks took the bait, but they weren't ready to go that high. Martin rejected all of their offers, but his arrogance didn't hurt him one bit. He went from $600,000 to $5 million in sales in a year after making his TV debut. Martin is still remembered as the one that got away, and he cemented that reputation with his second appearance on the show. It was pretty obvious he was there to gloat about his success in front of the investors. He asked for $1,200,000 for 30% of the company, and even if someone offered that much, Martin would probably back out.
Sharks, wouldn't it have been nice to know who was behind the door before you let me in? With my product, you can.
Number 3. Ring Doorbell, $700,000. The home security company Ring made the headlines when Amazon spent more than $1 billion to acquire it and was immediately branded as the biggest miss in the history of Shark Tank. Founder Jamie Siminoff pitched his smart video doorbell during season 5, but it was still called Doorbot at that point in time. His company already showed great potential, and when he asked for $700,000 in exchange for a 10% equity stake, it seemed like a rational price. O'Leary offered that much for a 5% equity stake and asked for 10% royalty, and if Siminoff said yes, it would have probably been one of the biggest mistakes of his life. The experience in Shark Tank wasn't his shiniest moment, but it helped him raise the profile of the company. In the years to come, he rebranded Doorbot, renaming it to Ring, and raised more than $200 million from several prominent investors, including Richard Branson. As if that wasn't enough, Siminoff became a billionaire after receiving an offer he couldn't refuse from Jeff Bezos.
MTailor sells men's custom shirts by measuring you with your phone's camera.
Number 2. MTailor, $2.5 million. Miles Penn went down in history as one of the most arrogant contestants to ever appear on the tank. His presentation of the app that measures you for custom tailored clothes called MTailor seemed too good to be true, especially after he brought out an extremely handsome model to convince the investors his app did an amazing job picking the right shirt. Despite his attempts to oversell his company, the Sharks felt the numbers didn't add up, but some of them did take the bait. Damon John was ready to go as far as $2.5 million in exchange for a 17.5% stake in the company. Kevin O'Leary puts another impressive proposal on the table when he offered Penn a $2.5 million loan at 7% interest for 36 months for 2.5% equity. He said no to both proposals and walked away, leaving the Sharks with a venomous taste in their mouth.
Let me ask you a question. If I offered you $30 million for the company, would you take it?
No.
Number 1. Coffee Meets Bagel, $30 million. Sisters Arum Dawoon and Sue Kang went down in Shark Tank history when they rejected the biggest offer ever made. The founders of the dating app Coffee Meets Bagel came in hoping that they would get $500,000 for a 5% equity. But Mark Cuban decided to raise the stakes. He was ready to cash out $30 million for the whole company. But the sisters weren't ready to part way with their passion project. They described his offer as great validation of the hard work their team had put into building the business, but they immediately knew selling it wouldn't feel right. The Kangs received a lot of backlash online from people who thought they were greedy for turning down $30 million, but that didn't stop them from growing the business in years to come. Coffee Meets Bagel is still a US-based app, but it's just a matter of time before they expand to the international market. At the beginning of June 2018, it was announced that their app raised an additional $12 million in Series B funding, and they're planning to use this incredible amounts of cash to introduce their app to users overseas. Turns out they didn't need Mark Cuban's money after all. Thanks very much for watching today's video. Make sure to subscribe to our channel for more amazing content, and don't forget to check out one of the other 2 videos on your screen.